Welcome to Special Guest Thursdays on the Final Boss podcast, where legends pull up, the mic gets hot, and the community gets loud. Each week, your host Turbo the CEO goes live with game changers, thought leaders, and culture shifters. From raw interviews to the hottest trending topics, and real talk on community impact. This is where voices rise and stories ignite. So buckle up, press play, and get ready to level up with Turbo. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement.
Welcome to Thursday night edition of the Final Boss Podcast. Tonight is special guest Thursdays. Yes. Special guest Thursdays. And it's episode number 185, man. Episode number 185, right? As we're on our way to episode 200, which will conclude season 3, right? This will conclude season 3. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, man, what a season it has been, full of opportunities, great special guests, Tech Tuesdays with the Sensei. We've had an additional show, Merger, that's doing really well. And of course, sitting down with moi, right? Sitting down with moi. Man, it's been a fun-filled season, man. I got my man. Shout out to my graphics guy, Alan Williams. Shout out to Scales and Tails, my man Chris, who also is assisting with different graphics, man. Look, season 4 is going to be amazing. Right? Season 4 is going to be amazing, right? Shout out to everyone that is on board right now. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you to the beautiful Miss Andrea. Let's give her a shot. Thank you for joining us. To Chikande, thank you for joining us. To James, to Mostat NY, and what is this? Esto given 653. Thank you. And I see other people coming in. Look, man, I try to get, if you have to get here early if you want me to give you a shout out, man. You got to get here early, right? Early bird gets the worm, right? And makes the nest. So let me tell you, tonight, right? Tonight. Let's bring it. You know it. Tonight is go time, man. It is go time. It's go time, man. Make sure you go get go time, your motivation workbook. Also, textbook, right? It's for the go time principles, right? Go get your go time motivation workbook, right? Where all books are sold. Look at it. Look at that, man. 331 pages of go time principles and discipline to include the 6 pillars of success, right? Go pick it up, right? Go pick up go time, man. Listen, and be all aboard the fired up train, right? So, man, listen, tonight I have a great show for you, man. Tonight we don't have a special guest. We're going to be running solo, man. And for the rest of this season, if I don't have a special guest, I will be here doing the show versus doing a rebroadcast, right? Unless I feel like doing a rebroadcast. But look, 185, 15 episodes to the end of this season, right? Now that I have your attention, now that you are tuned in, right? And I know some of you were tuned in and expecting a guest tonight. But here's what here's what's about to happen, right? I tried to do like this slow motion thing. Here's what's about to happen, right? Instead, I'm about to give you something more valuable, right, than any interview can provide, right? Listen, I'm the Final Boss. This is the Final Boss podcast. Welcome, 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 each and every single one of you, no matter where you are and where you're tuning in from, whether you're watching us from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Kick, YouTube, Instagram, or for you listening in audio pleasures on Spotify, right? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Look, I am the Final Boss, man, and I am here. We are here. And tonight, we're going to be launching the prologue to Tier 3, right? Elite Execution, right? The foundation of Go Time 3. And before you can execute a championship, before you can execute at championship levels, before you can multiply your empire, right? Before you can dominate whatever you're trying to dominate in your life, right? You need to master something, people. You need to master something, right? You need to master something that 97% of people never understand, right? And guess what that one thing is? You want to know? You want to know? You want to know? I'm going to tell you. Oh, I'm going to tell you, right? It's called, well, I'm calling it the failure doctrine, right? The failure doctrine, right? And here's the truth. Nobody wants to tell you. Every single person who's won big has failed publicly, catastrophically, right? And repeatedly, right? The difference between them and everyone watching from the sidelines is this. They treated failure like a promotion, not a death sentence, right? And this is 185. We're 15 episodes away from season 4, the rebirth. And you can't be reborn until you've died to the old version of yourself. Failure is that death. And what I'm about to teach you is how you weaponize it for your own rebirthing, right? Now, before we get into it, give me 1 second and I shall be back. Here's a commercial break. Dun, 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 dun. All right, we're back. Sorry about that commercial break, right? So, the failure doctrine. This is for the smarts who overthink every move. This is for the final bosses who are building their own empires. This is for my motivators who are coaching others through fear, right? This is for the warriors who know that every battle teaches you something about winning and losing, right? So let's lock in, right? This is no fluff, no theory, right? Just the systematic framework for turning your biggest losses into your greatest wins, right? And we're going to start the evening out with our brass tacks, man. And our brass tacks is coming from the fired up train, right? Get all aboard the fired up train, right? And here it is. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the tuition you pay for it, right? Every catastrophic loss is data. Every public embarrassment is feedback. Every moment you're afraid of what people think is what people think, right? When you're afraid of what people think, that is a moment you're surrendering your empire to their limitations, right? And here's the brutal truth. Nobody wants to tell you the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you, right? Most people spend their entire lives in a mental prison built by strangers' opinions, right? Built by strangers' opinions. You're letting people who haven't done what you're trying to do determine your next move, right? You're giving them, right? You're giving them veto power, right? You're giving them veto power over your vision, right? And you're giving your vision away to individuals who don't have the courage to build anything worth criticizing, right? Think about this, right? Think about this for a second. The people judging your failures, what have they built? Right? What have they built? Right? What have they foregone? What have they sacrificed? What risk have they taken? Right? What empires do they run? What? Nothing. I hear crickets. I hear silence, right? Silence and crickets, right? Because they haven't built anything. Exactly, right? Listen. On a very special day in history, I had to make some decisions, right? Because I was there, right? And those decisions were being made under the most impossible conditions, right? With incomplete information as to what was going on. Some decisions worked, some didn't. But here's what that day taught me, right? That day taught me in crisis, there are no perfect decisions, only decisive actions and their consequences, right? Afghanistan, Iraq, 2 combat deployments, every mission that didn't go as planned taught me more than the ones that did, right? Because when things go right, you don't question your process. When things go wrong, you have to, right? After action reviews, AARs, man, I do them still. I do them now. After every show, I do an after action review, right? After action reviews became my teacher, the best teacher, right? Not the victories, but the failures, right? And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. When I left the federal government, right? You don't think that I thought that was going to be terrifying, right? When others are doing it, you don't think that they're terrified, right? You don't think that people have opinions when you make those type of decisions, right? They do. Everybody has a damn opinion, right? I say, fuck their opinions, right? I say, fuck them, right? Fuck their opinions. But here's what I know, right? The people with the loudest opinions about your and I mistakes, right, aren't taking any risk of their own, right? They're comfortable. They're sitting in their cozy little 9 to 5, barely making minimum wage, and they're comfortable, right? Listen, and this is no shot against anybody who's doing that or working hard, or that's the best that they can do. I'm here to tell you that there's other methods. There's another way, right? And I'm also here to tell you that those people who have those opinions on you, right? You don't give them permission to have opinion on you. They have it anyway, right? But the question is, who are you giving permissions to limit your ceiling, right? Because every time you don't attempt something because you're afraid of what people would think, you're handing them the keys to your own potential. And most of those people, they're not qualified to park your car. That's the point, right? Much less drive your vision, right? Now, let's flip the script. Let us flip the script entirely, right? What if I told you that failure isn't just acceptable? It's an accomplishment, right? Embrace the failures, right? I like to call it first attempt in learning, right? That's fail. FAIL, first attempt in learning, right? Write that down. Write that down, smarts, motivators, warriors, final bosses. Write that down. Fail. FAIL, first attempt in learning, right? Because every failure is feedback. It's data telling you exactly what doesn't work, right? And that's just as valuable as knowing what does work, right? Might even be more valuable, right? Now, let me tell you something. I've studied some of these billionaires, right? And this is something I've discovered, right? I studied how some of the most wealthiest people on the planet, how they got there, right? And here's some of the things that are very common amongst most of them, right? One, they failed more than they even tried, right? Jeff Bezos lost billions, right? On all types of products, right? We're not going to, I have a list here, but I'm not going to read that list off to you, right? That's not important, right? Elon Musk, the same, right? Yeah, rockets explode. You know how much one of those rockets costs? Do you know how much one of those rockets cost, man? Failed, right? Oprah, how many times she got fired, right? Steve Jobs, he got fired from Apple. He got fired from Apple, right? The company he founded. You say, what? Exactly. Do people remember those failures? Some people do. Most don't, right? They remember the empires that they built, right? And the framework, man, the framework is this. When you attempt something difficult and it doesn't work, you've just accomplished three things, right? One, you gather data, right? You know, or I should say, you now know, right? One way that doesn't work, right? You built resilience. Your failure tolerance just increased, right? You build in bandwidth, right? And three, you separated yourself from 97% of the people who won't do anything, right? Because most people would never attempt what you're trying to do, right? And then there's this, right? My why. My why. The chai factor, the chai principle, right? The chai factor, the chai principle. I'm building what I'm building for my daughter, right? And what lesson do I want to leave her, right? Not that dad never failed, but dad failed publicly, learned systematically, and turned every loss into leverage for the next win, right? That's the legacy. That's the lesson. That's the failure doctrine, right? Theodore Roosevelt said it best, right? He said, it is not the critic who counts, not the critic who counts, man. Get that out your head. Get that out your head, right? It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives violently, right? Who errs, who comes short again and again, but gets back up to do it again, right? Now, let me break that down to you, right? Why that particular thing matters to you and for you, right? Because it is not the critic who counts, right? Critics aren't in the game. They're spectators. They're sitting in the seats of the Roman Colosseum, watching, taking pictures, right? They're doing this. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, he messed up on a word. Ooh, 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 ooh. He's having technical difficulties. Ooh, 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 ooh. Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up, right? Just shut up. You ain't doing shit. Just shut the fuck up, right? You be this, right? And keep your comments to yourself, right? Maybe you post it on social media or something, right? Go be useful, right? Go make Mark Zuckerberg and all these other guys some money. That's what you're good for, right? Go do that. Spectators don't build empires. They sit in the Roman Colosseum being entertained, right? The person judging your failure from the comfort of their couch hasn't risked anything, right? Their opinion is worthless because it's not informed by experience, right? And look, this is for the man who is actually in the arena, the warrior, right? The warrior, the gladiator, right? The arena is where execution happens, not in your vision board, not in your business plan, in the arena, right? The marketplace, the battlefield, right? The competitive landscape where results are actually measured, right? Whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, right? Wipe it off, right? Wipe it off. Remember that song, Brush It Off Your Shoulders, right? Remember that? Remember that? That was a time to be alive, man. Remember that, right? Because failure leaves marks. Public failure leaves visible marks, right? And here's the twist. Those marks are your credentials, right? Those are your credentials. So show me your scars and I'll show you your qualifications. Show me someone with no scars and I'll show you someone who's never been in the arena, right? You know how many businesses I had that failed? Do you know how many, right? Do you know how many businesses I had that I said, I need to walk away from this, right? Do you know? There are people out there that know. There are people out there that witness the downfall of something great, right? And what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? You get back. You brush off your shoulders, man. You brush it off and you do it all over again, right? Because this isn't about one failure. This is about systematic failure, right? Repeated attempts that are explosive learning tools, right? Explosive learning tools, man, right? Because the person who tries once and quits isn't qualified to judge the person who's tried 100 times and keeps going, right? At least, right? At least that person fails while daring to be great, right? Hey, Audio, what's good, my friend? What's good? How are you? I'm well, man. I'm well. Thanks for joining us, right? Even catastrophic failure in pursuit of excellence is superior to perfect execution of mediocrity, right? Perfect execution of mediocrity. Those, my friends, are bars, right? Perfect execution of mediocrity. Bars, right? The question isn't whether you'll fail. The question is, will you fail while daring to be great? Or will you fail by never daring at all? Hey, man, bro, thanks for the love, man. Thank you. Audio, man, it's example. He's giving us a testament right now in the chat. And look, if you got a testament, drop it in the chat, right? Audio has just said, man, because of the Final Boss podcast, right? He now runs a 7-figure company, right? He's been watching and building for 8 months, right? Man, shout out the audio, man. Congratulations. Listen, and you can do it too, right? You're in the arena. Your face will be marred. You will err, right? And you will come short again and again and again, right? The question isn't whether you'll fail. The question is, will you fail while daring greatly, right? Because not attempting is a failure, right? It's just a failure nobody sees, right? And that makes it the most catastrophic failure of all, right? A wasted life, right? Now, let's pivot. Let's pivot for a second, right? Let me teach you how to treat failure like scientists do, right? Because those science experiments, they fail all the time until they get it right. Because this is the systematic framework you need to hear, right? And we're going to start with something I like to call the iteration mindset. What'd you say, audio? Oh, man, I changed your life. Oh, go ahead, bro. Hey, man, we're in this together, man. We're in this journey together. And look, all it took, exactly, consistent work. And I know it, bro, consistent work. I promise it works, right? Listen, go get Go Time too, bro. If you haven't gotten Go Time, look, I know you got the business now, but you need to go get Go Time, man. All books are sold. Go pick it up, right? I understand, man. Yeah, man. Some people struggle to eat, but you push through, right? You push through, man. You don't need 3 meals a day. You sacrifice, right? Sometimes you live off bread and water when you have to. It's about the sacrifice, right? Now, oh look, oh yeah. So audio is really Phoenix, man. Give big ups to Phoenix, man. Listen, Thomas Edison tested over 10,000 materials before finding the right filament for the light bulb, right? When asked about his failures, he said this: I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's not motivational fluff. That's methodological accuracy, right? Accuracy. James Dyson created 5,000 prototypes before perfecting his vacuum, right? 5,000 prototypes, right? He called them iterations, right? The framework for your empire, right? The framework for your empire exists right now. Stop calling unsuccessful attempts failures. Start calling them experiments. Call them iterations, right? Launch a product that didn't sell. Yeah, I know. That's experiment number 1. Then you ask yourself, what did you learn from it, right? Pitch an investor. It didn't go through. Pitch another, right? Hire someone who didn't work, right? Guess what? You go hire somebody else. You got a job that's ready to fire you, or you're getting fired from a job. Okay, go find another job. Or go build your own empire, right? Whatever is fitting for you, right? That's what you do, right? And you document. I say all the time, it is necessary to document. Some people just don't have the discipline to document. Some people are just too lazy to document, right? You have to, you want success, you have to document. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You want success, you have to document, right? You have to document, right? And in that, you build your like a science experiment. You build your own little hypothesis, right? You build your own results, your metrics, right? What happened? Could you predict what happened, right? What did you do, right? What actually happened? Do an analysis of it all, right? Why this work? Why versus that, right? And then after that, after you reach a point of success or completion, you run another test. You run another test, add another variable. That's how you win, right? This is how you turn failure into a curriculum. Every experiment is coursework. Every iteration, progress toward mastery, right? Yep. Just like in school, man. When you get a question wrong in school, guess what you do? You learn from it, right? You learn from it, right? Now, here's the fired up train connection, right? This connects you directly to the fired up train methodology, which is right here in Go Time, all aboard the fired up train. So, where all books are sold, right? Failure builds fortitude, risk taking builds resilience, and attempting builds adaptability. You can't build character on hypotheticals. You build it by walking through the fire and documenting what you learned, right? What you learned. But not only what you learned, but what burned you, right? Now let me give you the framework that is, this is something near and dear to me that I learned from 3 wartime deployments, right? And combat. Right? These are things that will keep you alive, right? Right. Observe, orient, decide, and act, right? And then you loop back to observe and start the process all over again, right? Because in combat, you don't have time for perfect decisions. You need fast decisions with rapid iteration, right? The side that can complete the OODA loop, right, faster wins. Not because their first decision was perfect, but because they could adapt faster when reality didn't match their plan, right? Most entrepreneurs treat failure like death because they take too long to make decisions and too long to recover from mistakes. They spend 6 months planning, execute once, it doesn't work. Then they spend another 6 months recovering emotionally. That's a 12-month OODA loop, right? Meanwhile, someone else who's running monthly loops, they're learning 12 times faster than that, right? And here's the failure doctrine, right? Here's the failure doctrine. Observe, orient, decide, act, and loop back, right? You do it all over again. You do it all over again, right? You run a 4 to 6 week OODA loop, right? You can run 8 to 12 experiments per year. Someone running 1 experiment per year can't compete with your right learning velocity. They can't. They can't, man. Right. And then you document everything's metrics, right? Everything is metrics, right? And there's no such thing as perfect plans, right? Perfect plans don't survive contact with reality, right? But the decisive leaders with fast iterations do, right? I didn't have time to plan this podcast perfectly. I had to act. I had to observe. I saw the consequences and I adapted in real time. Go back to season 1. Go back to season 1, man. Let me tell you, go back to season 1, right? There's a lot of laughs in season 1. a lot of damn it in season 1 trying to get it together, right? A lot of technical failures also, right? That's the failure doctrine in real time, right? That's the failure doctrine in real time, right? And you can apply that to your life. You can apply it to life or death application, man. You can apply it to so many different things, right? And here's the truth. Here's a truth that will set you free, right? When you finally win, nobody remembers the failures. Right? Michael Jordan missed over 9,000 shots in his career, right? Lost almost 300 games. Failed to make so many game-winning shots. But when you think of Michael Jordan, you don't think about those failures. You think about his wins. You think about his 6 championships, right? You listen. You see the pattern? You see the pattern, right? It's because right now, you, as you're sitting on the other side of the screen, you're afraid of what people think of you if you fail, right? You're afraid. You're a scaredy cat, right? But if you succeed, like Phoenix, right? If you succeed, then they'll forget you ever failed. But you will never know if you don't try. They'll never know you existed. And then you have to ask yourself, what's the narrative you want for your life? Right? What's the narrative that you want for your life? Right? Because we're living in an era where everyone posts their highlights and hides their failures, right? So it looks like everyone else is winning while you're struggling. But that, my friends, is a lie. That's a lie. And you know what? Last night was a testament to that, man. Go watch last night's show, man. My energy was off. I wasn't feeling well. It was rushed. I was going through the motions last night, man. I was really going through the motions. And in outward opinion, well, from me looking in, I didn't think that it was a very successful show, right? Some of you probably thought it was a successful show because you don't know what to look for. But sometimes I could be such a perfectionist, man, that the hidden the miscues, oh man, I was just going through it last night, man. And I kept asking myself, man, people going to see this and they're going to say, oh man, he messed that show up. He messed that show up. But then I came to the realization that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. People make mistakes all the time, right? Everyone is failing at something, right? The difference is who's willing to keep failing until they figure it out. And I said, let me brush my shoulders off, right? I consoled to my good people, right? They witnessed what I witnessed. And I said, you know what? I'm coming back to do it again, baby. I'm coming back to do it again. And here we are, getting back on board the fired up train, right? Because with 350,000 followers currently across all platforms, the Final Boss podcast is a moment in this journey, right? A moment in this journey, right? Do you know how many episodes got 0 engagements, 0 views, 0 likes when I started, right? You know how many times I posted content that flopped, right? Hundreds, man. Hundreds. All the time, right? Post, repost, post, repost, post, repost, post, repost, right? Clip error. All the errors, all of the things that you guys don't even see, right? And here we are almost at episode 200, right? And think about this. Every episode produces 10 to 15 clips. right? So when I say hundreds, think about that. Do the math on that, right? Almost at episode 200. Each episode, we have each episode we're at with 15 clips. You know how many episodes that is, man? And shorts? A lot. We're talking about 1,000 plus, right? 1,000 plus. But nobody remembers those errors, right? They see the numbers. They don't see, I've been doing this for 2 years, and the failures that are now part of the foundation. And they're necessary. Because the lesson in that is your current failures are invisible in the shadow of your future success. Right? But only if you keep going. Only if you keep going. Imagine if I let last night get to me to the point where I said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. Right? We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Right? My final bosses, my smarts, my motivators, my warriors, they would say to themselves, what is going on with the final boss? He's supposed to be on at 9 o'clock, right? And as time goes on, where is the final boss? You check, he's not there. What if I allowed last night to get me to the point where I just said, you know, I'm done? Think about that, right? That's how most people start and finish. The point is they don't finish. That's not a finish, right? That's not a finish. Now, here's something most people don't understand. Failure builds character in ways success never can, right? Success confirms what you already believe about yourself. Failure forces you to question everything and rebuild stronger, right? The 6 pillars connection, right? The 6 pillars connection, right? We're talking about the 6 pillars of execution, the 6 pillars of excellence. We're talking about the what is it? It'll come back to me, right? But let's talk about the pillars of execution. Strategic deployment, consistent application, right? Skill implementation, network activation, resource multiplication, and peak performance, right? You know what makes those pillars unshakable? The failures that tested them. Every time you fail and get back up, you're reinforcing the foundation of your character, right? The military, man, in the military, we don't train in perfect conditions. We train in the worst conditions imaginable. Trust me, you have no idea, right? I did winter training at Fort Drum in the middle of the winter. I don't remember what year it was, but I never felt cold like I felt cold at Fort Drum, bro. Fort Drum has to be like the coldest place on the planet, like for real. Seriously cold, like evil type of cold, right? Why? Because when everything goes wrong in combat, you fall back to your training, right? Same in business. Should be the same thing in your relationships, right? Because when everything goes wrong, those are teaching moments. You don't walk away from that. You learn from it. You learn from it, right? And you get better at it, right? And then you fall back to your character, renewed, refreshed, and even smarter, right? You have to ask yourself this question. Are you building a character that can handle catastrophic failure and keep moving? Or are you building a character that crumbles the first time things don't go your way, right? Because the empire you're trying to build will test you repeatedly, right? And this applies to business. This applies to yourself. This applies to relationships, right? So many people are getting divorced left and right. People are ending relationships left and right because They don't want to learn. They're so comfortable in their comfort. When something goes wrong, they're out. They're ready to go out. They're ready to be out, right? What are you learning from that? Absolutely nothing, right? And you just wash, rinse, and repeat the same process. You go get with somebody else and do it all over again. That's why so many people are serial serial daters, right? Serial romanticizers, serial just everything, man. Just everything. Look, every successful business is built on a foundation of failed experiments, right? Everything from Google, Facebook, Amazon, and on and on and on, right? The companies with the highest success rates also had the highest failure rates, right? Why? Because they're testing more hypotheses, right? You may not have Google's budget. You may not be able to afford to fail on $1 billion scale, right? But you're a dollionaire, right? You're failing on dollars. You can afford to get back up, right? Get back up. Get back up, right? As a matter of fact, you can afford not to, right? You can afford not to get back up. You can't afford it. You have to get back up, right? Look, small failures may cost you money. Big failures cost you the entire situation, business, or relationships, right? Embrace the failures. You can learn. They're all learning points, right? They're all learning points, right? And here's a competitive advantage, right? Here's a competitive advantage most people miss. The person who fails faster wins, right? The person who fails the fastest wins. Because by the time you're thinking about doing something and you're trying to do it or don't want to do it until the conditions are perfect, until you have a perfect product, right? Somebody has lapped you in the 6 months time, right? They're already on their sixth version of iterations of whatever they're trying to do, and you haven't even got to step one, right? You haven't even gotten to step one. Listen, when I launched Final Boss Podcast, right? And I said this a few minutes ago. You have no idea how bad things were, man. But it was unfamiliar territory, right? Unfamiliar territory. The quality wasn't perfect. The audio was terrible. The editing wasn't perfect. The content structure wasn't perfect, right? But every episode it got better, right? And I kept continuing. I kept going, right? And here's the concept I want you to internalize. It's called the learning velocity, right? Learning velocity equals how fast you can convert failure into improved performance. The faster you can fail, analyze, and iterate, the faster you dominate, right? The formula is learning velocity equals number of experiments times quality of analysis divided by recovery time, right? Now let's break that down, right? Number of experiments, right? How many times you're willing to try? Quality of analysis. How well do you understand why something failed, right? And then the recovery time. How long does it take you to emotionally recover and try again, right? And then the competitive advantage. You take two entrepreneurs, start the same business on the same day. One runs an experiment per quarter, takes 2 weeks to analyze, takes 1 month to recover emotionally, right? The other one runs one experiment per month, takes 3 days to analyze, takes 1 week to recover emotionally, right? Who wins after 2 years? Entrepreneur B, he has 24 experiments, while entrepreneur A only has 8, right? Entrepreneur B has 3 times the learning experience, right? That's not a small advantage. That's dominance, right? Because the goal is to increase your learning velocity, right? By running more experience, experiments, by analyzing your failures systematically, right? That's 3 times more after action reviews, right? Reducing emotional recovery time, right? That's the goal. That's the failure doctrine mindset, right? Because there's something about failure. And this is something this is what people are not going to tell you. But the final boss is going to tell you, right? Final boss is going to tell you. Right? Resilience is a muscle. And like any muscle, you build it through resistance, right? You don't build physical strength by lifting light weights. You build it by lifting heavy. Failing to complete a rep, resting, and trying again. Same with failure resilience, right? Same thing, right? And you're going to maximize your results. And before you know it, however time you how much time and consistency you have in, right? You've built the resilience muscle, right? You've built that. Now, let me give you a framework for making decisions, right? When making decisions when you're afraid of failure, right? And we're going to call this the failure decision matrix, right? I like matrix everything, right? Ask yourself 4 questions. Yeah, I'm going to we're almost done. And be honest about these questions. Ask yourself this. What's the best case scenario if you try? Right? Be honest. What's the absolute best outcome? What's the best? No, I apologize. What's the worst case scenario if you try? Right? Not the catastrophic fantasy that you have that's renting space in your head, right? We're talking about actual realistic worst case, right? And then ask yourself this question. What's the best case scenario if I don't try, right? Usually nothing changes. You stay exactly where you are, right? And then ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario if I don't try? You stay exactly where you are forever. That's the real worst case, right? Now, here's an analysis, right? Here's an analysis. Best case of trying versus best case of not trying. Then you have worst case of trying versus worst case of not trying, right? 9 times out of 10, you're going to realize this. You're going to realize something, right? The worst case of trying is better than the best case of not trying, right? Many of you know that I have one more semester to finish my MBA, right? In global studies. Right? And God willing, the Heavenly Father above, right? The Almighty, all creator. If he allows me, I am starting my doctorate in July, right? Best case of trying, I become who I said I was going to become, right? I become an authoritative voice, right? Instead of saying I'm the architect of insight, I become the architect of insight, right? Be the voice on consciousness technology, right? With the academic credentials to prove it. Worst case of trying, I invest time and money and don't finish. Best case of not trying, I save time and I save money, but I live with regret, right? Worst case of not trying, I never know what I was capable of, right? The decision is always obvious to me. I must try, and try again, right? Now, let's zoom out for a second. Right? We're almost done. Stay there. Smarts, motivators, warriors, final bosses. What legacy are you building? Right? When your kids, your grandkids, when your community looks back at your life, what story do you want to tell them? Right? Do you want to tell them option one, you played it safe, you never took risk, never failed publicly, never built anything significantly? Or option two, you failed repeatedly, publicly, catastrophically, right? But you kept going, and eventually you built an empire, right? Because every failure is actually a brick. It's actually a brick, man. It's the cornerstone of magnificence. It's the pillars, right? It's the pillars of reward. It's the pillars of magnificence. It's the pillars of success, right? Every brick, every failure is a brick, right? Which story do you want to tell, right? Which story do you want to tell, right? For me, it's the chai factor, right? My why, right? I want to teach her everything I know, right? It's fail forward systematically with purpose, right? You're building generational wealth, right? That's what you're trying to build. That's what you're going to build, right? I'm not building a business to pay bills, right? I'm building intellectual property that outlives me. The Final Boss podcast, Go Time series, Merger Wednesdays, all of it, right? I'm not building it and playing it safe. I'm building it and failing in public until I figure it out. And here's the question for you. What are you building? What are you building, right? That will outlive you. And are you willing to fail as many times as necessary to make it real, right? You have to ask yourself that. You only get one chance at this. One chance at this thing called life, right? One. God is giving you life to do something great. You go out and you do what God commands, and you be great, right? And we're coming up on the end of this episode, right? And let me bring this home for you, right? The failure doctrine, right? Get out of the opinion prison. Stop letting people who aren't building anything judge your attempts. Use failure as an accomplishment. Every attempt is data, every iteration is progress. You have to understand the arena principle. Critics don't count, only those who are in the arena with you, right? And then you have to build off the iteration with iteration frameworks. You have to document everything. Have documentation experiments. Learn systematically, right? Go read upon the OODA Loop and understand it, right? Understand how to make fast decisions, rapid iteration, and have competitive advantage, right? Because success is loud. Your future wins erase your current failures, right? Your character foundation depends on it. Adversity builds unshakable character, right? All empires are built on failed experiments, right? Fail faster, learn faster, win faster, right? Maximize those experiments, analyze the quality, minimize recovery time, right? Train yourself to handle failure through exposure, right? The worst case of trying beats the best case of not trying, right? What story? And lastly, what story will they tell about you? Right? What story? What story? This week, I want you to deliberately attempt something you're afraid to fail at. Not something catastrophic, something small, but something you've been avoiding because you're worried about what people would think. Document it. Document it. What did you attempt? What happened? What did you learn? Right? What would you try next? And then post it, share it, man. Listen, so I've had so many failures, man, that I just thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity. I just thank him for giving me the opportunity. And I laugh. I just laugh, man. I laughed off last night's episode, man, after I calmed down because I was pretty upset. But I laughed it off. You have to laugh off the failures, right? You have to laugh it off. But give him thanks, man. None of us would be here. You wouldn't have the opportunities that you have, right? You're here to be great. You're here to be great, right? Those failures, share with the community, right? Look, hell, tag me. Tag hashtag the final boss, man. Hashtag final boss challenge, right? Let's normalize failures, right? And we do this now, man, because when we go into season 4, it's all about the rebirth, right? And we're only 15 episodes away from season 4. You can't be reborn until you die, until you die to the older versions of yourself, right? Failure is that death. The failure doctrine is how you navigate it, right? And then on the other side, a version of you that's unshakable, unstoppable, undeniable, right? We're here to go from chess piece to chess master. That's the journey, right? That's the journey. And this has been episode number 185. This is Special Guest Thursdays without the special guests. This is Failure Doctrine. I am the one and only, the final boss, the architect of insight. We are here. I am here, man. We're on our way to the end of season 3, the reckoning, with this beginning of season 4, the rebirth. And as always, man, if this resonates with you, share it with 3 people, man. Don't gatekeep. Share it with 3 people and let that marinate in your spine. And always remember this. Always remember this. Right? There's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but the pain of regret is even heavier. The pain of regret is even heavier. What will you forego? What will you sacrifice? Right? What will you sacrifice? We are here. I am here. This is the Final Boss Podcast, Final Boss Nation, Final Boss community. To my smarts, to my warriors, to my motivators, to my final bosses, right? We're on this journey together. We're all on this journey together, right? And to each and every last single one of you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Good night. Be balanced, be equal, and be smart. That is our show, man. That is our show for tonight. I hope each and every last single one of you have an amazing week for the rest of the week, right? For the rest of the week. Have an amazing week. Failure is an opportunity. Failure is an opportunity to progress. Failure is an opportunity to achieve. Failure is an opportunity to learn. Failure is so many more things than failure, right? Learn from it. Y'all have a great evening. I'll see you again this Sunday on Sitting Down Sundays with the Final Boss. God willing. Talk to you soon. Take care.